Hello and welcome to Asia TV viewers in conversation with Taha. Today I have in the studio Gurpreet, or Gups for short, is the Director of Research, Enterprise and Innovation and CEO, South Bank University Enterprises Limited. Gups holds strategic and day-to-day operational responsibility for their activities. He joined London South Bank University in September 2014 from University College London, where he served as Deputy Director for UCL Advances. Welcome, Gups. Thank you for coming to the studio.
Thank you, Taha, for having me. It's great to be here.
And I see that you have been going from strength to strength.
Thank you. Yeah. Trying.
Right. So today, I would like to discuss with you and let our viewers know how you decided to get into the education sector and what it means to the BME community.
Okay.
So I would begin with asking you, tell us something about yourself first.
So, 37 years old, from Wolverhampton, born and bred. So traditionally a black country boy.
Okay.
And that's kind of where I started my university career. So I studied and lived in Wolverhampton. And my first job was also then within the Midlands area, working within Birmingham City University, as it's now called. And I really moved to London in 2014, when I took up the position at UCL, 2012.
2012, okay.
And have been in London now for the last 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
And I think my career in higher education, fresh graduate out of university, didn't really know what I wanted to do with my career. Had spent most of my teenage years working in family businesses, but in also small to medium-sized businesses, engineering firms, and then the usual kind of pub and restaurant jobs you do as a student.
Right.
Completed my first degree, and then by happen chance stumbled on a job at Birmingham City University, went for it, was successful, and actually used quite a bit of my previous employment during my student days as a basis for securing that job. Okay. And have not looked back since. So higher education is kind of where my career started. And continues to grow
till today. So tell me something about your degrees that you've done. You have a few.
So I'm kind of a glutton for punishment when it comes to studying. So my first degree was in information management, University of Wolverhampton. So a BA honours. And when I was working at Birmingham City University, I had the opportunity to complement the role that I was doing by studying further for a MSc in real estate and management. At the time, I was kind of building a small property portfolio. I was supporting the Built Environment School to build industrial partnerships. And at the back of my mind, I had an idea of kind of jumping ship from higher education and becoming a chartered surveyor.
Right, interesting.
And that was part of the rationale for doing that particular degree. And so I was studying for that part-time, working full-time at the university. Also got married around about the same time. And it was when we had the property bubble burst. So I kind of graduated with a really good master's degree. But actually the property market and the job opportunities in that sector had pretty much suffered a decline. So I decided to stick with higher education. Then moved on to kind of the University of Birmingham. And at the same time enrolled on an MBA program there. And again, worked full-time, studied part-time with my MBA program, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I enjoyed that experience. And now working at London South Bank University, but also studying for a DBA, so a Doctor of Business Administration. And I've kind of promised my wife and my family and my friends that this is it. This is the last one. This is the final one.
So doing all these degrees, how did it all inspire you? Because I want our viewers to understand, especially from the BME community today, that here is a person who's done 3 degrees, he's on to the 4th one, he's 37 years old, and he's still going on it. So how would you, what is the inspiration behind doing all this?
I think for me, all of my degrees, I've tried to look at ways that they complement the job I'm in at that point in time. But also more importantly, how they provide a platform for me to then achieve the next rung of the ladder. A really good example of that was the University of Birmingham. It was a 2-year MBA program. I finished that and graduated around August time, August 2014. And by late September, I'd secured my deputy director position at UCL. So there's clear connection between deciding to do a piece of study, and then using that as a route to not only furthering one's own kind of knowledge about a particular area, but then using that as an opportunity to progress one's career.
Yes, that's correct.
And I think that's increasingly becoming the way that people are thinking about higher education. Is we can't lie, it's become more expensive to the students directly to undertake education. So I think we need to be able to look at and assess the value of that and how it can potentially support them in their career advancement and securing employment.
So I'm going to go back to this question, asking you again, what was the deciding factor to go into the education sector, or did you have it planned?
I'd be lying if I said I had it planned. I think I like any fresh graduate out of university would have made multiple applications for jobs, and this was the first one actually that came back positively, inviting me in for an interview. And so I went through that process and was offered the job, and I thought, actually, at the moment, there's nothing else available, and I was going to give it I was going to take a punt on it. And I think some of that is prevalent in the way that I've made some of my career choices. There's been opportunity to kind of jump in at the deep end, and do something that I may be unfamiliar with, and I've kind of relished at that, and I kind of like throwing myself or being thrown in at the deep end and then kind of beginning to rise up to the top and make something of it.
I see. So being in this leadership role, being the CEO of the South Bank University Enterprises, give me an insight into your role. I mean, what are the kind of qualities one needs to be in this kind of a job?
I think a lot of it comes down to people skills and people management.
True.
I think with leadership, and one of the things that I've discovered through my career, both in terms of being led by someone, but also now being in a position where I lead others, is actually having the kind of the personal skills to take people with you. I think I think
motivate them.
Yeah, a lot of leadership is about taking people on a journey with you, and ensuring that they are with you with your vision of where you want to take a particular, whether it's a department, whether it's a company, or whether it's a small project. There is a need to take people with you, and I think a lot of that comes through building trust, having transparency and honesty in the discussions, and making sure that people have the opportunity to kind of challenge and change the direction and contribute to that direction. So for me, a lot of leadership is around that, and I think it's as leaders, we often tend to take strategic oversight of a department or a project, and sometimes we actually have to roll our sleeves up and get into the operational aspect and understand from the team, the staff that we manage, that sometimes the strategic decisions we make may not be operationable in the way that we envisage it as leaders. And I think the only way you can really do that is to have that open dialogue and to talk and regularly engage with your staff on the ground.
So I might put you in a spot here now. This is all about thought process. And when I say we all come from a different community, whereas in the largest perspective of things, we are working with a very different community. And the way we have been brought up, our thought processes are very different. This is my assumption, this is my opinion. But at the same time, what kind of challenges do you face in the thought process when you have to implement an idea or a strategy that you just talked about with the larger community that you're working within the university?
The biggest challenge, I think, and I think a lot of leaders face, is convincing people of change. So a lot of leadership, I think, is around change and changing the way that we work, changing the way that staff are managed, the way an organisation is structured. So some of the resistance that leaders face, I think, is around that change. And people's ability to deal with that change.
Yeah.
And so, for me, that's an important aspect in it. I think some of the other challenges are just knowing what happens on the ground.
Sure.
My career's developed over the course of a decade, and I've quickly become detached almost from the day-to-day activity, and I kind of manage quite a broad portfolio of activity. And I regularly say one of the things I miss in my day-to-day job now is I don't have interactions with student entrepreneurs.
Right.
So I remember a time 5 years ago, I used to actually sit down with students who had business ideas, and I would advise them on what they should do, what course of action. And I'm now detached from that.
From that,
So, as I think as your career progresses, there is often that detachment from the delivery aspect.
Right.
And I think sometimes as leaders we forget what it was like
on the ground.
And we may embark upon a path that forgets that and brings challenges and difficulties to the people on the ground. So I think it goes back to my earlier point, which is around the communication. I think before we try and implement anything, before we try and agree on a particular strategic direction, you need to make sure that people have had an opportunity to contribute to that discussion.
Understood.
And that strategic direction.
Sure. So given a chance today, would you roll up your sleeves and be on the ground again and work with those student entrepreneurs? Or
I would love to do that. I really would.
You have enjoyed it in the past.
Yeah, I have. I'm not going to lie. I spent probably at least half of my career doing exactly that. And in some of the spare time that I do have, I've done some mentoring and coaching with the Prince's Trust, just to keep my kind of hand in that loop. And I'll never say no to a student that wants to chat over a coffee or a beer, to kind of talk their idea through or talk through the next kind of growth stage of their business. But it's less of a formal part of my role now, as I kind of take on more of the strategic oversight and the longer term planning of the company.
Sure. So you were talking about the change. Now the world is going through this technological change.
Yeah.
How are you able to implement these technological changes within the staff or within the university? Are you facing a problem from the staff, or is it very forthcoming and accepting by the staff?
I think it's the way that the change is positioned. It's looking at the way that technology can support that learning journey for the students. So I'll give you an example. I'm also the director of a software simulation company, where you can use a piece of business simulation software to test what it's like to run your own business, start to run your own business. Right. And we've incorporated that into some of our teaching and learning activities at London South Bank University and some of the other universities that I've worked at. Right. So for me, I think it's looking at how technology supports, but not replaces, the traditional model of teaching. Because I still think there's a lot of value in being in a classroom with a lecturer, more importantly with your peer network, so with fellow students whom you can begin to kind of bounce ideas off, share, work with, in a way that I don't think at the moment technology can give you that particular
So the touch
experience.
and feel has to be there.
Yeah, and I think it's looking at how technology can complement that, and I don't necessarily see technology as competing to take over, but actually looking at how it supports that learning process. So we have online learning platforms where you can download lecture notes, videos of lectures, but a video of a lecture is no replacement for going to the actual lecture itself. But we understand, there are part-time students with work commitments. We need flexibility in teaching and learning, so it's looking at ways that we complement it. And I think that's really the message to staff and students, is to look at how technology can support that.
Support it, yeah. So the message here is support rather than replace.
Yeah, I would say that.
Okay,
yeah,
that's good. So now you have been on a journey of this, forming partnerships all over the world for the university. So tell us a little bit about how you're forming these partnerships. What are the criteria? Is there a certain pattern you're following?
So I think with London South Bank University, we in 2016 were crowned the UK's Entrepreneurial University of the Year.
Wow, congratulations
on that. Thank you. So in a relatively short amount of time, I think it was probably 18 months to 2 years, we almost went from a standing still start to being crowned the #1 university in the UK for enterprise and entrepreneurship. So we were immensely proud of that. And for us, that's opened up a number of doors internationally. So a lot of people are now coming to us, actually, and saying, how did you get to that point? And how did you become the entrepreneurial university? What did you do? What was your model? What are the programs you run? What are the kind of key staff involved in that particular process? And that's enabled us to open up dialogue with institutions around the world. And at the moment, our partnerships are concentrated in kind of the Middle East, so Egypt and Bahrain. North America, so Toronto and New York in particular.
That's very good.
And then also China. And very much our approach is to have fewer international partnerships, but have much deeper engagement. So the analogy being that actually if we've got kind of a handful of international partnerships, we can do a lot more with them. So I will have colleagues that will focus on the teaching and learning aspect. So delivering our degree programs overseas, for example, looking at international student recruitment. And then I will go in and look at how we can develop research collaborations with these institutions and also enterprise collaborations. So it's fewer relationships, but much deeper.
So the services can be offered with a larger number of services.
So the best example of that for us at the moment is we have nearly 4,000 students in Egypt. So these are students enrolled locally at the British University in Egypt, but they are enrolled on London South Bank University degree program. So when they graduate, they will get a London South Bank University degree. And that partnership's going probably for about 5-6 years. And over the last couple of years, we've obviously seen an increase in the number of students, but we've now also started to develop joint research proposals, and we're looking at how we support them to develop some incubation provision across Egypt. So it's really taking that kind of a model and developing that kind of an approach to our overseas partnerships. And I'm particularly keen on how we can help others to develop their enterprise and entrepreneurship provision. Because that's beneficial to our students as well, because they have the opportunity to then travel and spend some time at these international locations.
And understand their culture and where they're coming from and all that.
And you alluded to it earlier, there are huge global challenges at the moment. And what we're keen to do at London South Bank University, particularly with our entrepreneurs, is to get them to think global from day one. So this is not about saying I want to create a business that serves a UK market or a European market. It's actually saying I want to create a business that serves an international market. And as a university, I think we have a role to help them achieve that. And one way we can do that is to provide these international platforms where they have a base. If they wanted to do something in China, I can send them across to our Chinese university partner and they could spend a month, 2 months, a year working out of our China office.
So what we used to traditionally call the student exchange program.
But it's exactly that. But I think looking at it more from an entrepreneur perspective. So saying, if you're starting a business that's operating in the UK and you have aspirations to grow it internationally, I can give you a handful of locations and you can pick the most appropriate one. And our university partner on the ground will help you on the cultural aspects, accessing finance, making introductions, and in return, I'm happy to help any of our international partners and their entrepreneurs to access the London and UK market.
So do you have any campuses abroad, and if you have, do you offer any courses directly from London South Bank University?
So not campuses. Our approach has very much been to find a local partner on the ground. So working with an established university and working very closely with them to assess what the degree requirements might be in that particular region, and then work with them on getting those courses validated and through all the necessary approval processes. It's quite a kind of a regulated environment, and I think it's quite difficult for universities to simply go overseas, build a building, build a campus, and start running degree programs. And it's also hugely costly. So the approach that we've very much taken is to say, who can we work with on the ground, who's kind of a similar type of organisation to our institution, and then work with them.
Sure.
And that it helps immensely, and I think it speeds up the process because they understand the culture.
Exactly.
And more importantly, they understand the regulatory environment and can walk with us through that process. And, I think
bring the local knowledge to you, which is very, very important in all these projects. I believe.
And I'm a strong believer in the sense that what I don't want to do is just take what we do in London and just plonk it somewhere else. Actually, we need to take the cultural aspects, and some of that is about involving the local staff and actually hiring local staff to do some of the delivery.
Sure. So I'm going to jump back to technology again.
Sure.
I'm going to break the next question into two parts. I've seen your artificial intelligence, virtual reality technology lab, and it was great to see that how students made Canada, UK, and UK, Canada on a table in the virtual reality sets. So tell us something about the virtual reality offerings that you have at London South Bank.
So we have an amazing VR facility around health tech in particular, so kind of simulation around nursing.
Right.
So London South Bank has a huge number of students from kind of the nursing discipline.
Right.
And we have what we call kind of digital simulation boards. And what we've done quite smartly actually is that the students use it, so they'll use it as part of their degree program.
Okay.
But we've also secured money through ERDF, the European Regional Development Fund.
Okay.
So we begin to now open up that facility to local businesses.
Okay.
So if you're a small to medium-sized enterprise, you can access the program, Simulation for Digital Health, come in and use our facilities to test your products and services or to come up with new products and services.
Very interesting.
So we use that funding from ERDF to open up not just our facilities, but the academic expertise on top of that as well. So you get access to the facilities, but the knowledge as well. And I think you need both in order to go through that innovation process.
True.
So it goes back to your question around how can you use technology in learning?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, actually, through a simulation board, you can work with a larger number of nursing students than you may be able to on a traditional hospital ward. So we can do a lot more on campus and a lot more of that education on campus without the need to kind of go into the hospitals.
I know this doctor, I'm not going to name him on the interview, but he's created this virtual reality operation theatre. So students actually do not have to, doctors who are studying MBBS actually do not have to go into operation theatre to learn. They just wear the virtual reality goggles and they're in the operation theatre. So technology is taking us places now. So artificial intelligence, how's that impacting the university? Do you have any courses that you're offering in artificial intelligence? Because the whole world is talking artificial intelligence. The whole world has been taken over by artificial intelligence. So
it's certainly an area that we are developing. So we have a centre for robotics out in Cambridge actually. We have a couple of research centres based in Cambridge.
Right.
And AI is part of those areas that we're beginning to explore. I think you're right. It is an emerging market.
Yes.
I think it's challenging what the jobs of the future will look like. And I think if I look at my own son, who's 5 at the moment, the job that he's probably going to do is not even created yet.
True, I fully agree with you.
And so it's interesting as an education institution how we're going to begin to prepare students for that.
Yes.
And I think there is something around, and we talked a lot earlier around change management. So I think that's one of the things we need to instill through education is the ability to deal with change. Because if the saying is if there's any one certain thing in life, it's that there is going to be change.
That's very, very true.
So I think building that is important. So I think the other two things we really need to build within the student population and through education is resilience and adaptability. And I think if we really begin to focus on those alongside the discipline area, so the discipline area is still important, but the ability to deal with change, the ability to be adaptable, resilient, actually then prepares graduates for careers that may not exist yet. You'll always have your cognate knowledge of the subject area, but then you can almost begin to adapt and move as the market, as the labour market begins to change. You know, and everyone would have seen that we've got machine learning happening now. So you know, you can feed a 900-page contract through a robot, and within 30 minutes. You'll check out
exactly
all the bits you need to be concerned about. Traditionally, a job that could have taken a lawyer a couple of days to go through. So I think it's about how are we going to respond to those kinds of challenges and those kinds of changes in the future.
From a telegram to a fax to a mobile to artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
That's true. I'm going to go back to the healthcare now.
Okay.
So London South Bank University has one of the best healthcare courses for nursing. And where do you see that? Is it possible that that course can actually help the NHS fill the gap of nursing which it faces during and after Brexit? What do you think about that?
I certainly think it can help to fill that gap. I think the issue we have is the number of people coming up to pursue that route of study. And I think that's where we've got the challenges. There will still be challenges in terms of being able to meet the demand I think that the NHS needs in nursing provision. And we're operating at peak capacity in those areas. So for us, I think we can see the demand, we can see the need, but it's how do we begin to get more people engaged into that particular area as a discipline. And only recently the pay cap in the NHS has been lifted, and we're going to be seeing I think 6% increases in salaries over the next 5 years, which is a positive step, and hopefully will encourage more people to kind of pursue that as a career. But we have seen huge changes in the NHS, and the way that nursing education is funded has changed as well, and that's having challenges in the number of people that are coming forward.
So would the government give you more funding to increase the capacity, or you think you don't have the capacity, increase the capacity infrastructure wise?
I mean we could always look at flexible ways that we can deliver more nursing provision. I think the government probably needs to look at how that area is funded in particular, to encourage more people to take undertake careers in nursing.
And so where do you see London South Bank University in 5 years' time from here?
Oh wow. Going from strength to strength. I think we've achieved a huge amount in the last kind of 3-4 years. So the Entrepreneurial University of the Year, our incubation provision is ranked number 2 in the UK, 15th in the world. And I think for me, we've got some very good solid foundations in place. It's how do we kind of begin to build on that. Our league table position has increased greatly over the last couple of years, and I would kind of see us continue to grow that in particular. So I think it's doing a lot more of what we're doing, but on a more kind of international stage as well.
So going international is the mantra from here on.
Yeah, for me, for me certainly, for the area of research and enterprise.
Good. So my next question to you is it a myth or reality that British people from ethnic minority groups are not able to get jobs like yourself? I mean, you have demonstrated it by the contracts in the education sector, the contacts that you've made, the exemplary work you have done around the globe. Do you think it is a myth or is it reality, or there is a mix between the two?
I'm not trying to sit on the fence here, but I would say it's probably a mix between the two. I think I've never seen myself as a kind of a BME leader in that sense. I just kind of see myself as a leader. And a lot of people that I kind of talk to, my advice is always just to take every opportunity, even if it feels uncomfortable. I mean, like I said to you, I've thrown myself into some very uncomfortable situations, and battled my way through, and I think that's made me a stronger person. To kind of counteract that, I was recently invited to be part of a study that was looking at BME leadership in higher education.
Okay.
And they've actually struggled to find people to interview for that piece of research.
Interesting.
So there is possibly something there around that. And early indications from that research are showing that, there's a lack of significant BME leadership across higher education. And we need to take some interventions to begin to encourage more people to look at roles within higher education. And one of the things that's come up is around role models and mentorship.
Sure.
So I think there's a lot we can learn from other areas, for example, kind of women in leadership, and some successful practices that have been implemented in that area that we can begin to translate across into the kind of the BME sector as well.
Right. So, there was another thing that I came across. This is some research that I've done at my end, and it shows that if you pick up a boardroom in the UK, there is probably about 3% people in those boardrooms from the BME community, and there are about 7% women in that boardroom, whether from the BME or other communities. So what do you think can be done to tackle this, maybe from an education point of view or from a university point of view, or even from your own personal experiences? What is it that we can do to have more people in those boardrooms?
I think, for me, having sitting on the kind of the senior leadership within London South Bank University, actually is one of the more diverse groups I've sat on.
Right.
And if I look at the university's professoriate, so people holding professor titles, I think South Bank is quite unique in the sense that I think we have 55% female professors and 45% male professors, and that goes against the kind of sector norm. And I think there's a shorter gap between the kind of the BME kind of leadership as well. So I think as a university we've made some really good progress in that particular area. I don't know what the answer to that is and how we encourage it. I think as a community we need to look at ways that we encourage the kind of the next generation to kind of come up and step forward and begin to take some of those leadership roles. And maybe some of it is an education piece around the BME community, because higher education may not be seen as a viable, valid career option. It's not the same as medicine, dentistry, accountancy, the kind of the traditional professions that we may go into. So I think looking at and role modelling people that have made very good, successful careers through higher education, both in terms of the academic perspective, but also then the non-academic perspective in terms of where the kinds of roles that I've been through.
Right. So in this regard, wouldn't you think that maybe the university can hold an open day and call people from not just the BME community but from all communities and discuss an option wherein board positions are offered not just people from the education sector. I'm talking about sports, banking, every kind of sector. Is that something you think is...
So most universities will have a kind of a board of governors, which it's part of the governance structure of higher education institutions, and that is representation from from my education, but also more further afield. So you do have those, the lawyers, the bankers, people from kind of public sector organisations, NGOs, charities, to begin to bring in quite different perspectives on how the organisations run and could be run. So I think that that's already in motion. I think more possibly could be done around careers in higher education. That's potentially where we have an opportunity to begin to open up and say a little bit more about what it means to have a career in higher education. 12, 13 years ago when I started, I never thought I would be at the point that I am now. I'd never discussed that with anyone. I'd never thought and written down, by next year I need to have done this, and then there's some of it, like I said, I've kind of pushed at open doors, or if it's a closed door, I've kind of barged my way through and made it work. And I was very fortunate in my first job to have a very supportive line manager who kind of saw something in me and kind of nurtured that. So I try and do that with my own staff now as well. And I think unless you have that, then it can be quite difficult to look at what your career might be.
Sure.
So for me, some of that is about opening up, sharing those kind of personal stories to kind of then encourage others to kind of take.
So that brings me to the point where I would like to ask you, what kind of a team do you have? Who are the people who work with you?
Yeah. So I started with a team of about, I think, 24 people.
Okay.
In September 2014.
Okay.
And the team has grown now. We're up to about 55, nearly 60 people.
That's commendable.
So it's quite significant growth. And most of those were in place within 2.5 years. So it's grown quite exponentially. I have a mixed team. So people from kind of the BME background, but also a good healthy split between male and female employees. My senior management team is quite evenly split as well. And one of the things that I'm particularly keen to do, and I do, is I try to look at a way that we can grow and nurture talent from within.
Sure.
So I look at kind of talent management strategies, career progression opportunities, and look at ways that we can begin to support the advancement of the team.
That's very good. That's very
we will try and look at ways that we can, if we win a new piece of work and there's an opportunity for someone to step up and become a project manager, we look at ways that we can facilitate that.
That's very good. That's very good.
And provide those opportunities. And training and development, so I've benefited from my line managers giving me the opportunity to work and study. So I try and instill that in all of my staff as well. So looking at ways that training and development, either through kind of formal degree programs or through kind of short courses, we can support our staff to kind of develop their knowledge and look at ways that training and development could then support their career development.
So basically you are empowering your team by this training and development that you offer.
Yeah, so I must say it's not a kind of you must go on this training course. It's to say we will support you, but actually as an employee, I expect you to take the leadership on that. So you need to own the fact that I want to do that particular course because it's going to help me achieve this in my job, and it's going to help me achieve this in my career. And that's really down to you to kind of present that back to me or your line manager, and then we will look at ways that we can support that. What I won't do is go out and say, right, I think your career is going to be this,
and you need to do it.
You need to do this, because actually, if that, there needs to be a level of self-ownership, because that's the only way it's going to work. Sure. And I suppose the other thing is, don't be afraid if people leave. I think a lot of employers panic that actually I don't want to make that investment in an individual because he or she may leave. They'll do the degree course and they'll leave. But actually, the fact that you're investing them makes that employee feel valued and trusted and respected for what they are, and they then enjoy the work that they do. Not to say that they don't, but they value that investment. And actually, sometimes you do have to leave an organisation to progress your career. It's just inevitable.
There are always pros and cons to every situation. So, what are your future projects now from here on?
So on here on. We've got an opportunity that we're following and pursuing in the Middle East, in Bahrain. So in the next few months, we'll be hopefully launching something out in the Middle East. And then there's quite a potentially large opportunity in China that we're also pursuing. So for me, it's just making sure that we're delivering what we need to deliver in London, in particular, and we've got some quite stretching targets that we're trying to hit, but then also looking at the bigger picture and the longer term strategy, because we're kind of 3/4 of the way through the 5-year plan. Kind of I set up when I hired in. So really, it's now looking at the next kind of 5 to 10 years.
10-year program.
And looking at what the shape of that might look like over the next 10 years.
That's good. That's good. So, Gups, tell our viewers today that, if they want to get in touch with you or your team or London South Bank University, what's the best way to do it?
So, the best way is LSBU's website, which is www.lsbu.ac.uk. So you can find out about all the degree programs and activities that we run. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm on @Gurpreet Jagpal. And you can find me on kind of all the social media platforms. I think if you kind of Google my name, there's a lot of articles and contact links. So feel free to get in touch. Happy to connect and talk to the audience.
And finally, your message to our audience today.
I would say, for me, education's been a very important pillar of my career. So if you get the opportunity to study, whether it's at university, whether it's through an apprenticeship route, whether it's through another vocational route, take that opportunity and make the most of it. But also, more importantly, don't be afraid to kind of throw yourself in at the deep end, because quite often that's where I think you learn the most.
So guys, you have learned today what education can bring to your table and how you can benefit from being educated. Even though, you know, experience in life pays a lot, there are positions available which are dependent on the experience you have in life, but education does play a big part in your life. So I would say, and as Gups mentioned, I will vouch him, go out there and, you know, put yourself in that position to do whatever you can. And on that note, thank you, Gups, for coming in.
Taha.
Thank you very much. It was good speaking to you.
Thank you.
Guys, keep watching Asia TV for more updates and news, and I will see you next week. Thank you very much.